precipice into total psychosis. Last night at midnight, it occurred to me to leave him outside for the night, and if he survived, to bring him inside in the morning. Sort of an experiment in natural selection. It's nuts. I'm so tired that I could easily go to sleep right now. But instead, I walk the sobbing baby and think my evil thoughts. Lady Macbeth as a nanny. It was like she was reading my mind. Perhaps you have been there too, and then you had mom guilt about it. So stop right now. Within weeks, our little one had me completely broken. My insecurity then turned into anger, and I grew isolated, and I was tired, really, really tired and resentful. My husband was pursuing his MBA right when our Liesel was born. He would come home from work in time to grab his sack dinner and kiss us on the way out to night class. And every night I cried, "Don't go, I can't do this," or some variation of. I did not think I would make it another day. I would wander the neighborhood with her strapped into the ergo, praying that somebody would find me. I was a zombie. I walked to the Sendix down the block, and they all knew me by name. Just there for looking. I spent hours then reading books about sleep. I had the pediatric nurse on speed dial, and I had my mom, and a picture in my mind that wasn't matching up to reality. My mom was a sweet set of extra hands, but she would say, "I don't know, honey, I just don't remember how I did this." Great, I felt so alone. Then one day she brought over this book by Dr. Weisbluth called Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child. It is now my go-to book. If there was a textbook I would give you, this is the one. I found stories in it of babies just like mine. Finally, it wasn't just me. I wasn't a bad mom. Relief. So I worked and I worked on getting Liesl the sleep that she needed like it was my job. I was obsessed. But eventually, she took her first 30-minute nap alone in her crib at 5 months old. In time, she became a champion sleeper, 12 hours a night. And I was more well-rested, even if I was the crazy, weird mom among my friends. She went to bed so early. They said I was too rigid with nap times and schedules. But it was really the only way with her. Author and speaker Lisa Jo Baker has a wonderful book called Surprised by Motherhood. In the introduction, she writes, "Motherhood is hard. Motherhood is glorious. Motherhood is hard." She's right. That first year of her life was so hard. I've said many times since then, I could do the delivery day any day. It's the everything that comes after that I just can't. But motherhood didn't get less hard, just different hard. And mothering Liesl wasn't the only thing going on in my life, if anyone can relate. We sold a house, moved to storage, lived with my in-laws, had another baby. During this time, I felt so disconnected and frustrated. And even though Liesl became a champion sleeper, there was nothing easy about it. I worked at it every single day. She took one short nap in the middle of the day. We could never meet anybody at the playground because everybody else was napping when she was at the playground. And although it didn't show it on the outside, I was losing on the inside. I needed help, but I never asked for it. Our lives didn't get any easier, and in our crazy, we made our circumstances big and difficult. I was a stay-at-home mom with a 2.5-year-old and a baby. We lived in a half-finished house we were flipping while simultaneously building a new house, and my husband was working full-time. And we worked so hard to try to maintain sleeping conditions. When the house was half finished, when there were no doors upstairs, nobody could go upstairs. We hung blackout beach towels with nails or thumbtacks, whatever we had to do, because I thought that if I could just control their sleeping conditions, everything would be okay. I kept working at it by myself, and my resentment and my anger grew and grew. And despite winning with getting my kids to sleep, I was losing with myself. I felt like a failure at every mom thing I did, but I pretended we were great. I dressed our kids in cute clothes, pulled myself together for church, met all of our obligations, lost my baby weight, and slapped a smile on. And then I got pregnant with our third. A few months into the pregnancy, at a routine OB appointment, the doctor knew something was wrong, and she said, "What's going on?" And I burst into tears right there in the exam room. It turns out I was depressed. I placed myself in her capable hands, and she knew what to do. She made me take action. She made me call a therapist and make an appointment and then call her back after I had done it. So I obeyed. And that night I told my small group Bible study ladies, I cried and I asked for help. I needed prayer and physical assistance. However, in spite of this hopeful step, about a month later came my darkest day. After a particularly wretched trip to the zoo that lasted 20 minutes because everybody was fussing and nobody was obeying and I couldn't get the stroller to fit and it was a mess. And it ended with me crying and screaming and sobbing all the way down Blue Mound Road. And when we got home, I made a plan to end my life while the children were napping. And I was really, really close to executing the plan. Somehow, in the middle of my attempt, I sent an emergency text to my friend who lived around the corner, exactly 17 seconds away. And she came and she rescued me. When my husband got home, we had to ask for help from everyone. We had to let others in. I had to submit to a course change, which included abandoning the self-sufficiency and self-reliancy plan I had been on. I was a stay-at-home mom who now needed a nanny for help. I felt like a failure. We did it anyway. I couldn't be alone. I had to ask friends with lives to come and babysit me and the kids. It was incredibly humbling. I couldn't make decisions about anything. I couldn't drive. I had to ask acquaintances at preschool to bring my daughter home from school or keep her for the afternoon. There was no chance I would be able to repay those asks, but it didn't matter. And I crawled in bed and I slept and I slept and I stayed there for months. And God was there in the dark with me. As I came out of the deepest parts of the depression, our Fritz was born, and I learned so much more about infant and toddler sleep and about the blessing of relationships and real help. We need one another. We were born to be communal, and we cannot parent well in isolation. True community requires authenticity, vulnerability, and admitting that we can't do it all on our own. We must actually ask for help and then take it. And when you feel like saying no because you can't return the favor in exactly the same way, say yes. And return the favor of watching your kids by ordering her family pizza or something else. This is how we build relationships. If we act like we don't need help, if we don't share where we really are, we lose. And we perpetuate the myths that women should do it all. My best friends now know my real struggles and I know theirs. They carry my burdens sometimes, and others, I carry theirs. Contributing writer to Forbes magazine, Margie Werrell, writes about asking for help, and she says, "Our fear is what gets in the way. Fear of overstepping a friendship, fear of appearing too needy, fear of imposing, fear of revealing our struggles and having people realize we don't have it all together. But here's the thing. When you don't ask for help when you need it, you assume all of a burden that might easily and gladly be shared. But you also deprive those who would love to assist you of the opportunity to do so. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, but it's rather strength to know your own needs. Maybe you need to ask for help in some way today." My sleep coaching began as tales of my children's sleeping went viral on the playground. I dispensed wisdom in my neighborhood, and from there my friend Ann asked me to join her postpartum business. For several years, I coached families to help their infants and small children get all the rest that they need. While I am not actively coaching anymore, the truths I shared with my clients then are still true today. And the principles actually apply to parenting your children at all ages. So, get your pens ready. Here are some things that I told my clients. There will be time at the end too for more specific questions and answers. And I'm doing sort of a shotgun approach, so if you don't hear something addressed, ask later for sure. So what did I tell my clients? 1, take a realistic look at your new situation. You have jumped from a job that you were trained for, practiced for a while, and you were getting a good night's sleep. Now you are working a job you have not been trained in, with a new person who doesn't give clear feedback, who doesn't speak your language, who doesn't know the territory, and requires constant hand-holding. You have no coworkers, water cooler, lunches out, or year-end bonuses, and you aren't sleeping. So be gentle with yourself. Being a mom is hard, and surprisingly, children need to be taught how to sleep, and parents coached as well. Dr. Mark Weisbluth, director of the Sleep Disorder Center at Children's Memorial Hospital in Chicago, and author of our favorite book, says, Sleep problems not only disrupt a child's nights, but they disrupt his days too. By A, making him mentally less alert, more inattentive, unable to concentrate, and easily distracted. Also, by making him more physically impulsive, hyperactive, or alternatively lazy. Tired children can be moody, more prone to illness, depression, anxiety, and weight gain. And it's linked to behavioral problems. Many pediatricians report that children who are labeled ADHD actually have sleep problems that have gone unaddressed that are manifesting as ADHD. Studies by the American Psychological Association show that nearly 25% of small children have disrupted sleep experiences, and this significantly impacts their well-being. But don't freak out, you can change poor sleep behaviors. I'm gonna start with these suggestions. 1, we don't give in to their wants in the grocery store aisle, when they want the candy bar, when they want the treat, when they want the toy. We therefore will not give in to bedtime demands. We don't feed them junk food, we will not feed them junk sleep. Number 2, you are the mom. You set the boundaries. Your 2-year-old does not tell you what to do. This is true even as I have teenagers. They don't tell me what their bedtime is. I tell them what their bedtime is. Motionless sleep is always best. If you are traveling with a swing and disassembling it and reassembling it in a hotel room or at grandma's, stop it. Stop. There are other tricks. I have some other suggestions for you. If you are driving your child around every day hoping they will nap and fall asleep in the car, stop. That's craziness. Earlier bedtimes are better for everyone, teenagers included. It's okay to have boundaries. Marriage time is really important for your family. A happy, healthy house is built on a happy, healthy marriage. That means there are boundaries around bedtime so that you have something left in the tank for your spouse. If you are having trouble figuring out how to make that work, please ask for help. If your husband is not sleeping in the bed because your children are in the bed with you, stop right now. That's not okay. Your kids will grow up and leave, but your marriage is for life. Date nights are super important, even if you go to Subway. I had one client call because she was exhausted and newly pregnant with her third. Her husband was a cardiologist and he was sleeping on the floor of their 3-year-old's room so that he wouldn't be scared, while the 1-year-old was in bed with her so he wouldn't be alone. I don't know about you, but I don't want that cardiologist working on me. This is extreme, but we do all sorts of crazy when we're exhausted. Some people ask about night terrors. These are not actually nightmares. Children do not remember them in the morning. They are not based on specific actual fears, even though these episodes really freak you out. They are not harmful in the long term. What causes these most of the time is a sleep deficit. The children are not well rested, and the more overtired they are, the more prone they are to these. If they have irregular bedtimes and wake-ups, this results in more frequent terrors. The cat nap, or the in-between nap, don't let it happen. Don't let it happen between scheduled nap times or you ruin it. Even 5 minutes in between will set you up for a poor nap ability later. So what are you to do? Well, there's some tricks. 1, don't get in the car. Don't put your kid in the stroller. If you have to get in the car, if you must get in the car, make them as uncomfortable as possible. Strip them down, open all the windows, turn on the air conditioning, turn on the music really loud, reach your hand back and shake their little leg. Don't let them have a lovey or a bottle. Mad is better than ruining the nap. And if you have had somebody who is hard to get to sleep, you know that you would rather have them sleep than be mad at you. They will not remember either. Remember that. One time I gave my daughter an open bottle of cold water in the backseat. She spilled it all over herself. She was so mad that we made it on time for the nap. And it sounds cruel, except that she wouldn't sleep unless we did all the right things. So it was worth it, totally worth it. She has no memory now. She's a healthy, happy teenager. Have a bedtime routine. This is important for everyone, yourself included, but especially important for kids. They need to know what to expect every night. It should be no more than 30 minutes from start to finish. And if you are having trouble finishing after 30 minutes, set a timer. The timer becomes the objective person, that tells everybody else when it's time to go to bed. So you say, oh, the timer said it's time to turn off the lights. Okay. And it doesn't become a struggle between you and your child. It's also helpful for caregivers to follow very easily, and then you can step out for date night. Stay the course, stay on plan. Even once baby begins to get it, don't change, don't deviate. Sometimes after 3 or 4 nights, baby reverts to old habits. And if you give in and go back to those old habits with baby, you undo all the good work you've done. Stick with the plan. It takes about 2 weeks for baby to develop a good new habit. Don't go in until a scheduled feeding time or a wake-up time, or you create a new need time. Agree to do the feed at 10 or 11, and then don't go in until 4 to 6 hours later. Children as young as 6 months can go 8 hours between feeds. You and your baby need consistency, consistency, consistency. This is true for almost all of parenting. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Among my sleep clients, I would receive some crazy, angry, angsty message in the middle of the night, usually on the 3rd night, saying, I can't do this, I think you stink, this isn't working, I don't think you know what you're talking about. I did not expect this to happen. It became kind of a joke because they were so upset that it was hard work. It is hard work. That doesn't mean you give up. You have to stay the course. And if you feel like you are prone to giving up, you have to find your teammate. So there's a story about about 2 parents who tied their ankles together with ribbon in the middle of the night so they would not sabotage one another. Don't go in, don't go in, I'm not going in. Okay, I'm gonna go in. Okay, you win, no, I'm going in. Just stop it, okay? You have to stay the course. There is such a thing as pupus interruptimus. It's terrible, but it does not have to happen every single night. If you have a potty training toddler, it's also important to keep in mind that they will use this as a manipulation tactic. The ladies in the Sleep Easy book say, if he claims to go to the bathroom once you've left the room, take him 1 time, and then tell him he's all done till the next morning. Some children find that if they claim every hour they have to go, that extends their bedtime. You set the boundaries. I recommend using a door lock if you have children or toddlers who are always in and always out, always in and always out. There's this awesome top of the door lock thing you can slide. It is installed with I think 2 screws. It's so easy. And then you just slide it across, and you know they're safe in that room. So even if you have somebody who's throwing a fit in there, fine, you remove anything that you think could be dangerous. And sometimes we have had to remove things that were not even dangerous, books or whatever became the distraction. But you remove the things, and then you say good night. They're safe, they can't get out. You can also turn a doorknob around. Sometimes if you have a push button lock, you can easily swap the doorknob around. And this is for toddlers who refuse to stay in their bed. Even if they don't sleep in the bed then, if they fall asleep on the floor because they're mad at you after their tantrum, fine, but they're in their room and you have set the boundaries. Sleep deprived driving is more dangerous than drunk driving. I remember a few weeks into being a new mother and sitting at a stoplight thinking, how did I get here? Where am I? And knowing that I was dangerous on the road. If you are that tired, please stop and ask for help. It's worth paying to get some sleep. You don't want to cause an accident for you or for someone else. There are a lot of myths about night waking. These are myths. Teething, separation anxiety, too hot, too cold. Most of it comes from poor habits. When there are not habits built in, all manner of things is an excuse. It's never too late to fix bad sleep habits, but if you don't course correct, the same babies and children have been tracked as those babies who had trouble sleeping are tracked as freshmen in college who report having trouble sleeping. If you're desperate to make your toddler listen to you for bedtime, try using an alter ego. My husband has this amazing crazy clown character, and it works every time. The children are like, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll put my pajamas on. My neighbor has one named Ursula. I mean, you can do whatever you need to. None of this is innate or natural, and if you don't know how to do it, that doesn't mean you are a bad mom. Question, does my child need a lovey? Loveys are awesome, but what if he or she won't take one? Well, the Sleep Easy ladies say rub something all over your body so it is saturated with your scent, and try that. My middle child one night was up around, he was about 5 months old, he was up every hour one night, and I was so tired, and he just wanted to nurse. And I noticed that while he was nursing, he was fingering this bow, this satin bow on my nightgown. When he roused 45 minutes later, I was so over it. I ripped off the nightgown and I threw it in the crib with him. And you know what? It became his lovey for the next 8 years. It was aqua blue, thank goodness. I don't think using a pacifier is a problem. I've never experienced that nipple confusion is a thing. I think pacifiers are genius. If you cut them out, eventually your orthodontist will be happy with you. But I recommend using a pacifier with a pacifier clip. Then you are not hunting for nooks in the middle of the night. Some people say, I'll just throw 5 or 6 in the crib. Well, depending on how your little person sleeps, you may have heard a cry in the middle of the night that says, I can't find my nook. And you go in there in the middle of the night and you're like dragging the crib out from the wall and you're like digging for hairy, dusty nooks. And just put it on a clip. It's so much easier. Some people use the Wubba nub that didn't even exist when I had children, but those things are really cool. But either way, using nooks are great, but you do not want to be up every night hunting or doing it what we used to call a passy push. You do not want to be the person in there pushing the passy every hour. This is also not healthy. Ask for some help. Does your baby still need to be swaddled? Usually till about 14 to 16 weeks. Some kids really hate the swaddle. Some kids need one arm out. Some kids need both arms out. I love a sleep sack until they're 3 even. It teaches them that this is sleeping time. So it's part of the routine. You change them into the jammies or the sleep sacks. They get the cues. Keep in mind that protest crying isn't the same thing as hurt, sick, need you crying. Babies as young as 6 months old have manipulation skills, so be on guard. The environment is important when helping children to sleep. You don't have to have all the gadgets. There's a lot of money to be had in the baby gadget world. You do not need to buy or rent the $6,000 snoo to have a perfect child sleeping. Think about these general principles. Darkness, as dark as they will tolerate it. Some kids want a small nightlight, some kids want no nightlight. White noise, if you can provide it with a fan, is enough. It doesn't have to be fancy. And motionless and cool. 70 degrees is about where 67 to 70 is perfect sleeping temperature. On vacation, this can be tricky. So if you are figuring out what to do when you're going on vacation, we have put a pack and play in an extra bathroom, and that became because you could close the door and there were no windows, or a closet. And when you tell your child later, you slept in the closet, they're like, what? Like, you were fine, it was great, because it was dark and you were alone. Nap time targets are usually 9, 1, and 4 p.m. for a short nap. Bedtime should occur no more than 3 hours from the last wake up. So if baby sleeps till 3 p.m., there should be 3 hours till you go to bed. That seems crazy early. Yeah, it does. But you know what? The earlier they go to bed, the later they sleep. This seems counterintuitive, but it's actually true. Please be aware of mixed messages. If you start to answer the feed at 4:30 a.m., that's tricky because at 4:30 they're in their lightest sleep cycle. And when you answer it at 4:30, then the next morning it's going to be 4:15 and 4 o'clock. And if they're in their lightest sleep cycle, you're not going to be able to successfully put them back down for any concentrated amount of time. So be careful, it can creep earlier and earlier. With toddlers, I recommend using the OK to wake clock or something else, green to go, red to stop. It helps them learn the cues that it's okay for me to leave at 6 o'clock or 6:30, whatever time you set it. And it again becomes the objective. Then they're not fighting you. That's the other that they can be angry at. Let's see. Keep a sleep log. So a lot of you probably keep something on your phone, but the tricky part about keeping it on your phone versus on paper is that you can't see patterns over time usually, and other caregivers can't help as easily. So if you keep one on paper, then everybody else can see, oh my gosh, look at that, we're gaining in wake times, or we're not gaining in wake times. And you can have a babysitter check off when baby is sleeping, and it helps you to see things too until you sort of get into a better habit. If you don't know how to do a spreadsheet, just phone a friend. This is another example of asking for help. I don't even know how to make a spreadsheet work. My husband literally speaks spreadsheet language. I don't know, but I'm so grateful we can put a spreadsheet together. Speaking of phones, get off your phone. Get off your phone. There is so much information out there that is scary, overwhelming. Half of what you read says, if you let your baby cry, you are ruining your child. And the other half says, if you don't let your baby cry, you are ruining your child. And there are so many other pieces of advice out there that are overwhelming. You are the mom, and you know your baby the best. And you need to stop listening to everybody else. Stay the course, whatever you decide. If you're not going to let them cry, stick with it. If you're going to let them cry, stick with it and trust your gut. A snap. This is what we call something that is less than an hour. It is not an actual nap. 45 minutes is a snap and doesn't give the restorative sleep necessary. So if it's 45 minutes, you are missing a window there. Maybe you need to get to bed, get the baby to bed before, 15 minutes before. We'll probably extend it closer to an hour and a half. No matter what happens during the day, remember that bedtime is considered reset. Some days the naps are all off, but if you consider every night bedtime is reset, that will help you. If you have we used to call them crispy critters at our house. If by 4:30 your little person is a hot mess, nap hasn't gone well, they're upset about everything, they do not need family dinner, okay? You do not need family dinner. They need a beef stick and bed. Okay, maybe it's not beef stick at your house, a spoonful of peanut butter and bed. They need sleep more than they need food, especially the toddler who snacks all day, okay? So a beef stick and bed, even at 5 p.m. If your kid is a mess and nap has gone bad, 5 p.m. is better for everybody. Trust me, they'll sleep late and you will be much happier with your spouse. You might even have had a candlelight dinner. Put that little crispy critter down. Pray and get your husband to support you and your time in God's Word. His Word is life and living water. Even 10 minutes with your Bible will pay dividends every day. I used to prioritize it more than a shower because the shower didn't actually fix anything. But God's peace and hope, in spite of what was happening in my life or with my children sleeping, was what I really needed. If you are concerned about your child's sleep, their tonsils and adenoids may be also a factor. So if you are thinking somebody snores or breathes too loud or is always tired despite 12 hours in bed, please have your pediatrician check for tonsils and adenoids. You also need to do what keeps you healthy. I learned that I need at least a 20-minute walk outside every day to help me stay healthy. Take your vitamin D. Starting in October, you should have already increased your vitamin D because we are definitely in the dark season, so get some vitamin D. Get as much sleep as you can. Now I know that that is hard in certain seasons, but ask for help to sleep. Go out with your friends without your children. Go on the women's retreat. Plan a trip. Eat more than just the leftovers off your kid's plate. You will feel better. Your children will also benefit from being with a babysitter sometimes. They don't even have concrete memories until they're like 4. So they're not gonna say, my mom was always gone and I was always with a babysitter and it was horrible. They're never gonna remember that. My kids think babysitters are amazing. They play all the games, like 10 board games. I don't wanna sit that long. So babysitters are awesome. If you are worried that you are too anxious or if you think you might be depressed, tell somebody and get the help you need. Tell me and I will help you get the help you need. Remember that if you stick to the schedule 98% of the time, the few times you deviate will be much easier to come back from. Consider activities at night as something that might not be actually very important. Does everybody need to go out to the concert at 7 p.m.? No, get a babysitter, leave that little person at home. Take only the big kids. That little person, it needs to be in bed more than at that activity. But regardless of how those perfect Pinterest people make life look, authentic mothering is truly living, so ask for help, even if you don't even know what you're asking, even if it costs money, even if you don't know how to do it, just ask a friend. If you don't know how to turn your breast pump on, ask a friend. Lisa Jo Baker in her book writes, "It's a relief to know that motherhood is hard. This is the gift girlfriends can give one another. The 2 a.m. truth about parenting. How it can hurt, and which pads or ointments or boxes of chocolates can help ease the ache. My dear friend walked me home to a sleeping baby and showed me how to use a breast pump. Grace and chocolate cake can cover a world of awkwardness." If you have giant nursing bras, share them with your giant nursing boob friends. If it hurts, or if it looks weird, or if you don't know what to do, don't hide, call someone. Call me. I once pumped blood, and I was so freaked out, I called a friend and I sent her a picture. She assured me I was not dying, nor was I actually pumping blood, but I was so glad I asked. If you are so tired that you give in to what you know are bad habits, bringing your baby to bed with you, giving in to your toddler's requests that you sleep with him, endlessly saying goodnight to one or more terrorists. This is not a life. I had another client who drove every day from 12 to 2 so that her cranky 3-year-old would nap when the baby did. She never had a destination, she just drove. She called me when she found herself in Pewaukee and realized that she was crazy. Stop doing this and listen to me. Our goal is not just a happy baby. Although that is a wonderful desire, the goal of this life is to be the best you can be and do the best you can with who and what you've been given. There is no rage like the exhausted rage of motherhood, Baker writes. These are the things they don't talk about in the parenting books or play groups or coffee dates. How you will one day lose your ever-loving mind because 2 boys peed all over the bathroom shelf just to see what kind of range they could get. If you share in real life what your troubles with your kids look like, sound like, feel like, you break down those Instagram barriers. And yes, some kids are just perfect. Well, I don't know how, I don't know any of their parents. But the rest of them are a mix of good and bad, and obedient and disobedient, and hilarious and adorable and manipulative and bright and precocious and sweet. And when you share your real self and your messy crew with others, that's where real connection happens. So when you find yourself exhausted and overwhelmed, simultaneously crying and eating and covered in breast milk and sweat, consider giving yourself a timeout and call your friend around the corner. She just might save your life too. After my suicide attempt, my friend told me that when I texted her, she was in the middle of saying, I just can't do my day. So she did mine. Mamas, you are not alone. You are not supposed to be able to do it all on your own. A wise Hallmark card once said, motherhood is not rocket science. It's brain surgery on astronauts during a lunar launch while reciting the Declaration of Independence backwards, only with less logic. Let me pray for us. Lord Jesus, you know our situations and our needs. Please give us the strength to ask for the help we need, both from you and from others. Please bless these little mothers as they care for their little ones. Lead them gently and give them all they need. In your great name, amen. So if you have questions, do we have time for questions, Lee? Yeah, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So my son is almost 20 months, and he still doesn't go to sleep on his own. We have a twin mattress next to his crib that we then take him out of his crib in the middle of the night, and he sleeps with us on said twin mattress. And that was our improvement from our room.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what to do from here at this point because
Yeah,